ready to go live. And my mouse died just as we were ready to go live. So thank goodness, I have a touch screen desktop that I can get through this without having to actually do the show on my phone. I'm so grateful for that. So this is an interesting time. I hope you all had a great Independence Day weekend. Not going to say happy 4th of July because that really doesn't have any meaning. The meaning is Independence Day. And so independence from being controlled and being suppressed by a monarchy or a hierarchy that thinks that they have power over our lives. And so Independence Day is a really important time in all of our lives. And the way I see it is it's not just about Independence Day, it's about being independent of your past, moving toward what you want, letting go of the past, declaring your independence from your past, and just never looking back. And so I went whitewater rafting this weekend, and I'm going to share that with you once I introduce my guest. I got a lot of epiphanies when I was out there. And so right at that moment, there's a construction site literally across the street, and they are sawing up a hole in the street to lay some new water pipes. So, okay, welcome to being on a professional podcaster. So yeah, what is living life on the leading edge of thought? Well, it's all about consciousness, and it's consciousness in your health, your wealth, your relationships, your business, and your self-expression. Now I threw in an extra one, and that's business. Typically, the 4 pillars of your life are health, wealth, love, and self-expression. But I feel like, because I'm a business coach, I feel like business is how we engage with others, other than maybe family time or social time. But we spend 2/3 of our lives working. So I just added that one in there. Anyway, my guest is a money coach. Her name is Candice, and she is from Canada, I think close to Winnipeg, right?
Yeah, you got it.
Wow. Well, you know what we used to say? I grew up in Saskatchewan. You know what we used to say? Winterpeg.
Yeah.
We used to call it Winterpeg. But hey, great football team. Great hockey team. Like, what else can you ask for?
Yeah, pretty much. That's all we talk about is sports.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you don't, I mean, you pretty much have to learn to live your life according to the weather, right? Because it pretty much dominates everything. So it makes sense. I mean, you've got hockey and football and baseball, and then if none of those are going on, you can always shoot pool or go ice skating or just go play some backgammon.
Yeah, and the summer is so short that we've got lakes, so people are big into the cottages and cabins and all that stuff. So
yeah, I remember growing up, that was a big thing. So we were about 10 miles from our lake, our local lake that the neighbors, everybody used. And so we'd have the boat ready to go, and the guys would come home, and we'd have stuff packed up and just back up to the boat, hook it up, head to the lake. And it's light. You might not have many days in your summer, but you have lots of hours in your day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we'd go water skiing till 10 o'clock at night. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And it's a quieter lifestyle. It's not big city life, but there's something to just having that quieter, simple lifestyle that I think people miss once they've left, or when people come, they're like, this is so nice that we're not keeping up with the Joneses and everything else that tends to happen in bigger cities, right? So it's just what you want.
Everything. It's interesting you're saying that, because I've been traveling since the end of May. I'm actually right now I'm in Tennessee, and I'm in a small city. I wouldn't call it a small town. It's a small city, but I spent yesterday I spent the last 2 days, actually on the weekend, up in the Blue Ridge Mountains in Georgia.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, first of all, there's just Tennessee is so beautiful. It's green for miles, like it just
Yeah.
never stops being green. And it rains about every 2-3 days just to make sure that it keeps up with that. But my experience too is with Georgia. Now, what's interesting is, you know, I grew up on a farm. I've lived all of my life as an adult in the city, you know, with millions of people. I think Los Angeles has something like 8 million people.
Yeah.
And now I'm experiencing all these small towns, and I'm really actually I'm drawn to it. I don't desire to go back to the small town I grew up in,
Right.
but I do like the charm and the ease of and the sense of community that you get with a small town.
Yeah.
And but I don't see it the two for me being exclusive of one another. I think
Right.
given what I do and how I enjoy having access to more resources, the city still has a place in my life,
Yeah.
just not on a full-time basis,
Yeah.
you know? So as I'm traveling, I'm kind of working that out in my mind. I ask myself every time I spend a week or two in a small town or a small city, I say to myself, okay, could you live here? And then I just wait and I see how my body feels. And
Yeah.
sometimes I get a maybe, sometimes I don't get an answer, sometimes I get a hell no, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a possibly,
Yeah.
right? So it just depends on a lot of criteria in your life and being able to wade through that.
Yeah. And I
And
think a lot
not,
of people, you have the opportunity to do that, right? And to be able to test and try things out. But so many people get stuck in, I have to be in this city, I have to be in this house. And, you know, when things get shaken up, whether it's a personal life change or COVID or whatever it is, then suddenly people reevaluate, right? And that's why we've seen the great resignation. And I sell people's houses because they're moving across the country or they're moving to Mexico, or, you know, people are starting to, you know, whenever there's a change like that, people think like, do I want to be here? Do I need to be here? What do I really want out of life? So I think it's
yes.
cool that you're in a place where you can try and test out different things. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting because I started creating this about 2005, 2006, when I started traveling abroad to Europe and doing speeches. And you know, I would be there and I'd think, wow, wouldn't this be cool if I could do this full time? But then I would come home and I'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so good to be home. So I don't think I'd want to be a nomad 365, but
Yeah.
I do enjoy, like I'm in heaven right now. Like I just have no need to have anything permanent today. And because for me, I'm going, and we're going to get into this sensitive talk about money. And this might be a good segue. When I don't have anything familiar, like my comfort stuff, like this is my house,
Yeah.
this is my sofa, I bought this, this is my decor, I spent months, years putting this together.
Yeah.
That becomes an identity, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And when you don't, I feel when I don't have that identity to clasp onto, then I actually start to explore inwards and find such greater levels of consciousness that, like this morning I was reading some Florence Scovel Shinn, you know, The Game of Life and How to Play It. And I'm just like, one page turned my whole belief system on its head. And I'm like, wow, okay, I need to integrate this today. So And part of that was about money, and getting into a place of, okay, well, what would it take to double, quadruple, what would it take? What would it take to live a bigger life? Well, it's a bigger responsibility.
Yeah,
And do you
exactly.
feel that that's a thing for people with money, is that it's a bigger responsibility to manage it?
Yeah, well, again, it goes back to, okay, if I want to live in that neighborhood and I want my house to be this in this size, right? Bigger, bigger, bigger. What I don't need one car, I need three, even though I can't drive three cars at once. The more that we have, the more there is that maintaining, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so sometimes I think it's just, again, when you get shooken up, or like you said, when you leave your familiar surroundings, if you go on a retreat, a personal retreat, I think that's the best thing you can do quarterly, and just leave and not have your phone with you, not have all the distractions, and just think, like, what do you actually want out of life? Probably all of these things are not going to top the list if you really think about it, right? But it becomes a distraction from what you really want, because you are having to keep up with all this stuff, right? More lawn takes more time to mow, more house takes more time to clean. And like you said, if you don't have any of that stuff, you suddenly have a lot of time on your hands to be doing, right? Instead of sitting, maintaining, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a point to that, because and I'm curious what's happening in your neck of the woods with real estate. When I decided to do this trip, and I looked at what it was costing me, what my financial burn was every month to maintain a life in California,
Right.
where everything is inflated beyond any other state in the country. I really had to ask myself some hard questions. Is this really that important to you,
Yeah.
that you live in this state? Can you achieve what you want to achieve somewhere else? And even being on the road and using, vacation rental properties that I find online, I cut my monthly burn in half.
Yeah.
I'm seeing new places, I'm meeting new people, I'm having new experiences. I spent 2 days whitewater rafting that would have been, I don't know, like in California, it's hard pressed to find water. So I don't know where I would have done that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to make a right, wrong, good, or bad comparison. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that it's a self-evaluation process. And if you do, let's say you do want more lawn and you do want more cars, hey, I support you in that. It's just
Yeah.
then really know that that's what you want, and it's not because it's a way of making yourself feel good, or a way of
Right.
having someone else decide you're now acceptable to be friends with, and that it's really about the experience of it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's always the trade-offs. So there's only a certain number of hours in the day. So what are you trading your time or money for, depending on the choices you make, right? So like you said, there's nothing wrong with having a big house, but is it what you really want? That's all.
Well, you can always hire staff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking too. It's like, see, I've kind of lived my life reverse. So, grew up in I wouldn't say we were poor, because my mom always made sure we were clothed and had good food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there was a poverty mentality, and there was a scarcity thinking. And so we had a big mindset around that
Mm-hmm.
money was limited. You had to hang on to every bit of it. There was never any more coming. It
Yeah.
was, and I suppose it just came out of the times that she grew up in, understandably so. That was her programming.
Yeah.
But so I've sort of lived my life backwards, and when most people are, I guess, putting up their feet and slowing down. I'm like speeding up and and creating bigger. And I'd love to have a few hundred acres and a big house where I could invite friends and have gatherings, and
Yeah.
I just hire staff and contribute to the economy and
Yeah.
put people to work.
Yeah.
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 So what's the real estate market like there in Manitoba?
So far, so good. Our market is always pretty slow and steady, wins the race. So there's not these huge, up and down um, times in the market, which you see in the bigger cities, Toronto and Vancouver in Canada here, Calgary to a lesser extent as well.
Sure.
Yeah, so we had a little bit of a, increase, about 13% when we're used to like 2 or 3%. So
Oh, wow.
we definitely did have a little bit of a blurb in the market, and now we're just kind of going to do the slow and steady wins the race again. So it's a little bit boring, but at the same time, it's consistent and predictable, which people like, and that's what they're used to here. So
Yeah. What makes your job easier?
yeah.
As a realtor, you know what's happening. So what's on the other side of it as a money coach? What's that look like for you?
A lot of people approached me as a realtor, and so that's why I got into the money coaching about 5 years ago. Just saying, hey, like, you seem to know about money, and you build these relationships with people, right? And selling your house becomes a very intimate type relationship with the people who are involved.
Sure.
And so then people are like, well, can I ask you a couple of questions about money? Like, you seem to know about money. And so that's kind of where it all started. And it's the sky's the limit, right? Because everybody has different things that they have as concerns or issues. So it could be survival, right? I just got to get out of this debt, or I need to get a job, or we went through financial crisis in our family, whatever that looks like. It could be the opposite, right? Where I've done really well in life, but I'm so scared to lose everything and I
Sure.
can't spend, right? And mindset issues, like you said, it could be I grew up poor, or I grew up where we had um, alcohol abuse or something, where there was financial struggle. It could be people were hiding things about money, so it was always a taboo subject, or there was always
Oh,
stress around money.
100%.
Yeah.
Can't
So
talk about that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even myself, I remember, because I was very specific with myself, where I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, so many parents do this. But when my kid said to me, what did we buy this house for? And I just about said, none of your business. Because that's what we do. We don't want to share anything with your
Yes.
kids. We can't tell them how much we make. We can't tell them how much the house was. We definitely can't talk about debt, but then what are we doing for our kids, right? We end up where we are at, of not, having these struggles.
Understanding money.
Yeah, not talking about it, but everybody feels like they're struggling, but nobody can talk about it. So everyone thinks they're the only ones struggling. Meanwhile, we all have money issues.
Yeah. It's just different for everybody.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've worked with some people that could barely pay me to come to a seminar, to people that were billionaires, and I had lunch with them on their yacht in Monaco, and everybody in between. And at the end of the day, whether it was someone worrying over a dollar or someone worrying over millions, it was still, this is something that has to be addressed. Now, the one worrying about a dollar might be coming from a place of, I'm not worthy, and because I don't have enough of this and I can't get more. And the one with, that's a billionaire that's concerned about millions is coming from a place of, okay, I created this, now I'm responsible for it and I need to take care of it. So it's a different responsibility, but it's still a responsibility. And do you think that there's how big of a play does mindset have in one's ability to, well, first of all, create money, bring more money into their lives?
Yeah, it's definitely mindset. And it's also the focus of people, right? Like, so many people focus on, okay, I need to save that little bit more.
Yeah.
But any change requires a lot from people, a lot more than most people want to do, right? So
Yes.
to change jobs, that's a big one. So, okay, I could go through that, but that's a lot of stress. That's putting myself under a microscope to go through job interviews again. I haven't done that for 10 years. Or I could just try and save a little bit more. Save. Not spend on this, not spend on that. So is that a mindset thing? I would say definitely, because both are very important. But our comfort level and where we want to just kind of, stay in life really matters. It's the same as, if you suddenly do really well in life and all your friends are not. Now you've gone to this next income level,
Yeah.
and you have a different set of, friends, and it's uncomfortable because you're not where you thought you would be, right?
Well, and you suddenly you're not relatable to
Right.
the old dynamic. I've been doing this experiment probably this last year. I taught a course online back in 2020. It was 12 weeks, and I called it Shift, Change, and Heal Your Money Story. Because I felt like I needed to get this out to people, that your money is really about the story you tell yourself about your money. And so when I was doing that research, I was very curious what the neuroscience was behind it. So I did some further digging, and I found that like our neurotransmitters in our brain actually look like, if you were to look at, say, a vine, right? A vine that grows, that creeps and continues to spread out. If you considered your neurotransmitters to be like that, then when you think a new thought, because this is the key, right? It's about thinking new thoughts. To your point, it's about shifting your paradigm into the place you want to be. So when you think a new thought, it actually, the vine of your neurotransmitters starts to grow. And so the more you think that thought, the more it grows. And what it actually does is it or they reach out seeking more like-minded thoughts or similar neurotransmitters, similar vibratory neurotransmitters, and they end up, fusing together and connecting. And when that happens, boom, like you've got a new pattern of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take that and we look at the habits of our lives, looking at, okay, what does one do to maintain a feeling of comfort? Well, you might stay in the same place your whole life. You might eat at the same time. You might watch the same TV shows. You might go to the same pub. You might hang out with the same people. You might do the same seasonal sports. But what if, and here's another one. When you start to feel uncomfortable because you're getting outside of your reality, like your life is changing, then maybe you eat a little more, or maybe you medicate with more TV or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
What if when you're tempted to go do that same old, instead you did something new?
Yeah.
And the new thing you did connected to that new thought of that higher level of wealth.
Yeah.
Because what happens is with the neurotransmitters is they literally double within like 21 days. But the thing is that if you don't keep up the new thought, by the 3-week period, they actually cut back into less than half. So not only do you lose everything you've gained, but you backslide. And so I was thinking about how powerful that is, because, and I've seen it myself too, if I don't keep up the thinking, like that saying, if you don't use it, you lose it.
It's true.
If I don't keep up the thinking, I start to lose traction.
Yeah. And so much of like what you said about habits, that's like, it's so important to try and do that in your change as well, like you said. So if I want to get up earlier and I put my phone in my ensuite bathroom because then I have to get up, then maybe that will change my sleep, if I'm trying to get up earlier, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just setting the alarm earlier, it's doing a habit change with it.
So actually when it goes off, getting up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right? Yeah. So
Yes.
there's so much of that. Yeah. I think cognitive behavioral stuff with it, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I've watched clients that have and I've done it myself, you want a goal and you start doing the behavior that goes with the goal, but then after a while it takes over your life, those new habits, and the old habits that you would have done, like maybe going to happy hour 2 or 3 times a week,
Yeah.
gets in the way. I remember when I first started my fitness journey, all those happy hours were in the way of my workout.
Right.
So I stopped going to happy hour and I just would end up in the gym.
Mm-hmm.
All of those friends
Yep.
went away with happy hour.
But that's the painful part that we don't always. Yeah. Because then people are like, well, I miss the friends, so let's just go back to happy hour. So it's
Right.
not about the exercise, but it is about the exercise because of the social part that you're missing.
Yeah, it is.
And that's spending money too, right? Like it's easy to say, no more happy hour, Candice. You're saving up now for retirement. And then when your friends call for happy hour, it's really hard to say no. It is.
It is. It is. And wow, you just opened a whole can of worms right there, because at that time I was dating someone that didn't have the same health values that I did.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always complaining that I was in the gym. And so there's a level of sabotage, as if it wasn't hard enough already for me to make the change, right? Yeah. So I had to get a new boyfriend because that didn't work.
Yeah.
But you said it so well. It's, then I lose my friends. And I think if we would all just hang in there 5 minutes longer,
yeah,
there'd be a tipping point and the new friends would show up.
And sometimes we have to be the brave one to make the change, and our friends are actually okay with it, but we don't think they will be. Like there's all that like judgment, what if? But a simple example of, instead of going out for dinner every Friday night, what if you said, come on down to my place, right? And that's a change. And you go like, oh, maybe people will judge where I live, or maybe I'm not a good enough cook, or maybe you say everybody bring something and there's like this, what? We're doing potluck? That's weird, But you could also have people say, oh, thank goodness somebody suggested it, because I don't want to keep spending money on this going out all the time either, right?
They could also create a new stream of revenue. Instead of having to cut back to save, what if you developed a new stream of revenue and took that money and put that money away?
Yeah.
And said, okay, rather than chopping up my lifestyle so that I can save money, which is kind of an old school thinking. It's like we have to sacrifice in order to save. But what if instead you develop another stream of revenue and you say, okay, I'm going to dedicate all this money to my savings, to my reserves. And then it becomes fun, where it's like, okay, well, let's build this revenue stream up really big and let's see how big we can make this.
Yeah. Or people often tie like, okay, I want to buy something, but I need to make the money first. It's sort of that reward, right? So if I get to that next sales level, then I'm going to be able to afford the sports car that I want. And so some people will tie it to that too, what they want and their goals to income levels.
Yeah, that's really
there's so many ways to do it. Yeah.
I find that to be the positive approach, whereas it's like, I had an assistant, and I think I've told this story on my podcast before. I had an assistant, and she was Miss Frugal, which I thought was a benefit to my company.
Yeah.
And so I went out and I bought a new printer. We had to have a printer, and I don't know what I spent on it, $400 or $500. And ink is where they make their money. Like an ink cartridge was like $70 or something. And she's like, well, I can save money on that. So she spent a couple hours online. First of all, I'm paying her to spend time online researching where to buy this discounted ink cartridges. Yeah. And she finds them. I don't know what they cost, $17. And she was just so proud. So we get it. She pops it into this new printer, and it totally destroyed the head that does the photographing of the documents. Yeah. Destroyed it, gone, finito, nada, nothing. So I got a hold of the printing company, and they're like, no, we can't replace this. You just have to buy a new printer. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. I spent money on this girl to do this research, to nickel and dime to get a $17 cartridge to destroy a $500 printer. That thinking the dots don't connect on that.
Yeah, well, and buying high quality items too, right? Like if you're constantly trying to buy the cheapest stuff, or you could just buy a really high quality pair of boots or whatever it is. There's always that. Usually the high quality stuff lasts longer and you're miles ahead too.
Well, and it presents better. Yeah. Makes me think of Stuart Wilde. He was one of my mentors, and he has this really funny story in one of his audio programs. I think it's in his book, The Trick to Money is Having Some. And he said, he was telling the story about how your shoes say everything about you. And, his story is someone that shows up in a really nice outfit, but then they've got these like cheap plasticky shoes on. And I have this vision of these like, $5 jelly sandals with this business outfit. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you gotta invest in yourself. Mm-hmm. And so what kind of real-time issues are you helping people deal with right now? Because we've been through hell, with the pandemic, and then economically and inflation and blah, 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 right? So I think everybody's feeling a little stressed.
Yeah. And, like I said, everybody has issues, but they're different. Depending what we're going through, it's now different issues that are coming up, right? So now people are kind of relooking at their budget. Do we really want to go on the family trip in the van, with fuel prices double of what they were? Now our budget of what we had saved is not what it's, from last year. It's completely different. We were looking at doing a family trip, and we still are, but our rental vehicle during COVID was $400. It's normally about $7 or $8. And we looked to rent one. It was $1,300. I said, well, let's think about it. 1 week later, I was like, let's just do it. And then it was $2,000. The same rental van. Yeah. So these are the kinds of things that, there's always changes, right? Every day there's things that we aren't expecting that are coming up. There's shortages. My husband needs a fuel pump for his truck right now, 3 weeks. Okay, what are we doing for the next 3 weeks? So these shortages and what we're going through is also causing stress. It's not just the money piece, right? So there's a lot always going on in life. And I think, COVID has just made a new change, right, for some people. And now with all these shortages and inflation and everything, it's a new change. Interest rates are going up, new change, right? So it doesn't really matter what it is. I think in our own lives, we have to have the emergency fund. We have to think through the what ifs, whether that's on the saving part or again on our income, right? So during COVID, a lot of entrepreneurs had to do the pivot, had to do the changes to make sure that they could keep going. I think that's just part of everyday life.
It is. And being flexible, your resiliency, your ability to bounce back, don't let it get you down. I think for me, having conversations about, say, inflation, it's depressing to the point where it makes you want to give up. and you can never give up, never give up, never quit, and
Yeah.
never give in. So the question then becomes, well, what else can I create? What can I create that, first of all, what do people need right now? That's number one.
Yeah.
And then number two is, what can I create to fulfill that need for people? Because not everyone has the ability to rise above the fray, if you will. I think most people get weighed down by what's going on around them.
Yeah.
And one of the main tools that I teach my clients is practicing running your mind beyond the senses. Because if we only evaluate our lives through our senses, everything you just said, the cost of that rental van, the weight for the part for your husband's truck or car, like the just the nature of societal reality right now. If you only calibrate to that through what you see, hear, say, smell, touch, all of that, then you're going to feel like there's no hope and there's no point. And so if there's ever a time in history for all of us to learn to train our minds beyond our senses, meaning go into your imagination tool. I call it my virtual reality theater. Go into your imagination tool and live your life there, because you'll manifest that. You'll create that. Thoughts are things. Our imagination is what creates, our thought is what you, me, all of us, is what creates all of our life, all of our reality. This computer we're talking on was someone's imagination.
Yeah, for sure.
The chair I'm sitting in was someone's imagination. The desk my computer's on, everything was someone's imagination. And you have to really be circumspect what you allow yourself to imagine. Because in that, you can't believe in duality. Like, you can't believe in, I can create anything and at the same time be afraid of what's going on in the world. You just can't.
Right. Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, 100%. And I find too that it's, well, what I call it is more the emotional brain versus the wisdom and being wise, right? And it's so easy with the news and the social media and all that stuff for your emotions to come first, right? But I think it's our wisdom that snaps us out of that. So emotionally, I'm scared. Wisdom, wait a minute, I got through yesterday, I can get through today too, right? And wisdom kind of snaps us out of that, and then we need to go forward. But the other thing is to put on the blinders and not be distracted by all this stuff.
Yes.
Like, turn off the TV, turn off the social media. Like, what do you really want to accomplish? Because your brain only has so much room. So if you're really working on something, like you said, if you're being creative people, if they get so sidetracked, it seems like, to everybody else, right? They're in their own little world. Well, yeah, of course they are, because you have to be creative, to be thinking about the next step in your business. You can't be drawn into the drama of everything else and worrying about everything else. You got to be super focused on what you want to accomplish and get it done.
Absolutely. That kind of pulls this whole thing full circle. We were talking earlier about how the comfort zone, it's like when you get out of that comfort zone where you're not, okay, I'm exhausted, let me just watch TV for 3 hours. Well, listen, if you have enough energy to watch TV for 3 hours, you have enough energy to put it into moving your life beyond your current circumstances.
Yeah.
If you have enough energy to watch TV for 3 hours, you have enough energy to go to the gym. It's really getting past that comfort zone and saying, I don't feel like it, because everything is about that feeling. So develop the feeling of moving forward. Develop a relationship, an emotional relationship with your goals as if they are already completed.
Yeah.
Because when
And
you have that relationship, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When you have that relationship, then you don't have a relationship with the current reality because you don't have the time or the bandwidth to pay attention to it. You're over here in a doing a dance, having a romance with your life the way you want it to be, as if it's already done, and that's a feeling.
Yeah. But you know, if you start going to the gym and you lose 90 pounds, your friends are going to be like, well, what are you doing? Like, who do you think you are now? You know, because you've changed. And so again, you know, the wise thing to do is to go to the gym. Emotionally, easier to sit on the couch. Easier to go to work the next day and talk about the latest show, which you always talk about with everybody every day that you're at work, right? So harder to be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about in that series anymore because I don't watch that show. And then you're out of the loop, right?
I will say I got one thing out of a series I watched recently. I watched Downton Abbey, I admit. And but I used it as a study. I used it as a study for proper social graces and for high-level communication skills, for not being emotional about things and just getting on with life and getting on with business. I use it for a variety of things. And there was this one line in the show where one of the characters said something that was negative, and the granny looked at her, at the character, at her co-star, and said, "Don't doubt, darling. Doubt is for middle class." And I was like, wow. Okay, now we could do a whole study about why middle class stays middle class. You know, it's because there's an element of doubt into the thinking system and the paradigm. So, you know, we could go on and on about that because money's just a thought process. It's a tool.
And it's just decisions, right? You're deciding how you spend it. It's not good or bad. It just depends what you're deciding, right? So,
and how you're creating it. How are you creating more revenue in your life? Everybody should have more than one revenue stream. If you don't have more than one revenue stream, I have 8 revenue streams that I've developed over the last few years. 8. So I don't rely on 1 or 2 or 3. And with this changing dynamic of a world that we live in, y'all need to have multiple revenue streams. That's all I can say to that. And if you don't, then it's fascinating to me how many people are still working at a job waiting to retire. It's like, that may not be a possibility. Retiring may not be a possibility. Even if you think you've got it stocked away.
Or you might still be able to retire early. Because again, it's part of it is what you believe, right? And so I hear it's like when I talk to people and they're 25 and they're like, oh, I'm so tired. Okay, but you're telling yourself you're tired. And then I've got to see an 80-year-old woman who's like still, you know, has a garden and doing all kinds of stuff. So again, it starts with what we believe. And, you know, if society keeps telling us, oh, you'll never retire, oh, life is so hard. Or do you say, I don't care what everyone's saying, I'm going to make every day the best.
Doing my reality.
Yeah, for sure.
And have some passion. Have some passion, people. Passion. Yes. Get excited about yourself. If you can't get excited about yourself, then nobody else can do it for you. Right? Do you have something for people? I'm sure you've got some tools that people could tap into.
So I've got one-on-one coaching is kind of the grind it out. If you've got an issue and you just want to tackle that, that's the easiest way. If you're more like, let's do the program, we've got 7 weeks to financial freedom, which kind of goes through all the basics, you know, to kind of cover off all the different parts of finances. And the nice thing about money coaching is I'm not selling you investments. I'm not selling you life insurance. Like, it's just really looking at where you're at, where do you want to be? And let's start making those moves towards that.
Very cool. Do you have a download or something people could get?
Yeah, I've got my coaching call is probably the easiest, and then we could kind of see what works for you. But yeah, I've got budgeting sheets and all kinds of stuff.
You
So
do have
depends what
budgeting
people work
sheets.
for. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's make sure we get those up in the link so people can get a taste of you and then connect to you that way.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, awesome. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. And
Yeah, no problem.
I hope you have a beautiful prairie summer. I'm sure it's phenomenal.
It's great.
So thank you so much to Candice for being here today. Make sure you guys check her out. What's your website URL?
Yeah, investorsmarts.ca.
Investorsmarts.ca. Brilliant. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Great chatting with you.
You too. Have a great rest of the summer. Take care, everybody. Remember, stay aligned, stay alert, stay awake. Here we go.